この漫画は児童の性虐待につながるというふうに口を揃えてるぐらいに言ってるんですよね。この意見に関してはどう思われる？
そもそも犯罪者を犯罪に走らせるに足るだけの科学的な根拠がないっていうこと。国が法律としてとか規制として行うときには科学的な根拠ってないといけないんですよ。
You know, many times, how can we put this? You know, this war on anime and manga that has been going on for quite some time now. And a lot of times, you know, and I keep saying this, is that the reason why this is that this is one of the only nerd culture or pop culture, however you want to call it, that they haven't been able to control. They've gone after everything from Lord of the Rings to Star Wars to Star Trek to Doctor Who. You see the damage that they've done. Now they're trying to get through to anime and manga, and they can't. Japan won't let them do it. Even though there are distractors in Japan that have tried to get it. I mean, now we have a politician in office in Japan that is pushing for protection of these formats of entertainment. But every once in a while, you're going to get somebody or someone in the mainstream media that is going to try to combine anime and manga to pornography, to child trafficking, to child pornography, to other formats of, you know, they try to combine hentai and lolly and all the other, they try to put them all in the same sphere, the same fandoms to the industry. And recently, Vice News, which let me tell you something, is just become such a crap sphere. And I can understand when Tim Pool talks about Vice News, what it was and what he was able to assist to build, and then they just crapped out and all the issues that are going on. I can understand now why. You know, because the money's dried up. You know, and all these social media sites like Vice News and you know, you saw Anime News Network is sold out to Katakawa. You know, this is where everything is going to. You know, it's someone else is going to end up buying them out. But Vice News put out a small mini segment that tried to demonize anime and manga. And they truly failed to do it. They truly failed, but we'll discuss that. But before we start, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, share. Thank you for those who tuned in to all of our social media platforms. We are moving forward. YouTube, we are at over 600. We're getting close to 200 on BitChute. We're still trying to climb on Odyssey and Rumble. And this is why we're trying to separate where we're able to get the most coverage for all of our shows on there. It's like, for example, we have Rabbit T Rabbit over at BitChute and at Odyssey, which BitChute, it does very, very well. Odyssey, it still needs to pick up a little bit, but that's where we do the live feeds, which we just had the Rabbit T Rabbit Marathon, which did decently on there. Could have done better. But hey, listen, it takes time. And one thing about Odyssey, it is changing day by day. They're adding new stuff that will get us more closer to that. Eventually, Rumble, we will be doing live feeds off of Rumble. There's a lot more we're working on. It's, you know, 2023, more to come. Let me straight out first before we really get into this. And I'm going to tell you straight out, I love anime, manga. I do watch a little bit of hentai, and I'll tell you that straight out on there. Not all of it. Some of it's a little crazy on there. Some of it's funny. Some of it, you know, It it does have some storylines on there. You know, Bible Black happens to be one of them, which is a great classic on there when it comes to the hentai. And there's a couple others that are classics out there. When it comes to lollies, I'm not really into that genre. And I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to be sitting out there demonizing it, pushing it out. It's just cartoons. It's just cartoons. Now, there are some things in there that, it's very cringy and stuff like that. But like I said, these are drawings. And there's nothing against that right now at the moment. And the thing about it is, the publication, Vice News, tried to make it sound like it's totally illegal here. And technically, it's not from one technical aspect. But we're going to read a little bit into this. And this was back at the end of November. Out of bounding into comments. Vice News runs hit piece equating lolly manga to real-world child pornography. Blacklist video from showing in Japan. And that's the thing about this. This video that Vice News did, they shut off the comments and it wasn't available in Japan. And some of the people that were interviewed are hitting back on this because of the way they were portrayed on the interview. From the same news publication that ran a sympathetic piece putting forward the idea that an attraction to actual minors is nothing more than an understandable sexual orientation, Vice News has taken to the calling for the censorship of Japanese manga featuring lolly-style art on the grounds they said it is P to the E to the D to the O and contributing to real-world abuses. Vice News delivered their extra hot take in a recently published video report bearing the accusatory title Inside Pedophilic Manga Industry of Japan. First airing on Vice TV on September 29th before uploading to the site's YouTube channel on November 21st. The rough 17-minute hit piece centered primarily on the outlet's outrage that while Japan's 2014 banning of child pornography addressed the real-world images of sexual abuse, it did nothing to the regards of illustration depictions of fictional characters. Hosted by Vice News correspondent Hakino Montgomery, the piece saw Montgomery discuss the topic with various individuals handpicked by the outlet to be presented as definite representations of each of the respective sides of the debate. Montgomery opens up with the video speaking with a manga artist identified only by the name of Shinji, who explains to her that Lolicon works, which the outlet, who has run numerous stories under virtuous P to the E to the D to the O tag, attempted to translate as animated child pornography were fiction that has no victims. People have the right to enjoy themselves in their private world, says the artist. I'm sure there are people who get sexually aroused by these drawings, he adds, but you can't force someone to stop because you are disgusted, and you can't create a personal laws just because of their personal objections. Pushing back against Shinji's argument, Montgomery asserts, on the other hand, in Japan, the number of cases of sexual violence against children has been increasing every year. If you could prove that, there's a link. To this hypothesis, the artist admits, well, if you could prove that, then I suppose it would be banned. But why do we have to wait until there's proof? Questions Montgomery in turn. Meaning if proof hasn't been found, that means a child become a victim. However, unswayed to this appeal emotion Shinji encounters, on the other hand, it is wrong to wait for proof. The video then moves to bolster the feel of fear-mongering by attempting to claim that the U.S. law, anyone found owning the magazine with animated child porn can get you to 15 years in prison and labeled a sex offender for life, but not in Japan. However, per U.S. Code 1466A, only can be criminally charged for possessing produced lolly art if it's determined to be legally obscene under the twin statues of any media in question both depicts an image that is or appears to be a minor engagement in graphic bestiality, sadistic, masochistic abuse, or sexual intercourse, and lacks serious literary, artistic, political, and scientific value. That also falls into the privy of the Miller Code. So this is, think about this for a minute. We discussed this before on the Miller Code. That basically, there's a politician out there, GOP, who wants to redefine obscenity. You see where we're going with this, all this. This is what they want to do. They want to change everything, and they're using lolly, they're using pedo, they're using child pornography and all that to frighten you into okaying that they could change these laws and remove your freedom rights of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all this other situations that we put through the Constitution that we discuss daily on these shows, including Man Cafe. Next, Montgomery speaks with Katsuna Kajari, the chief director of PAPS, which is People Against Pornography and Sexual Violence, an organization which provides support to victims of sexual assault, including children who are pressured into child pornography. Questioned by Montgomery as in whether there's any link between lolly manga and real-world sex crimes against minors, Kaji alleges it is impossible to measure how it's affecting children abuse, but I believe it has an impact. See, the thing is, you listen to what they're saying, you can go ahead, this is still on YouTube. You can listen to what they say, and they say like, oh, it is a danger, but we don't have the proof. We don't have the numbers, or we don't have the research that proves that this is. And there are a lot of research out there that has proven against this, that it has no correlation to child abuse, child pornography, any of the above that they're trying to push onto you. It condones child grooming and abuse, says the past director. In fact, young women and children are exposed to this manga. It normalizes the idea of sex with adults. We have made a society in which children are forced to learn from the experience early on that they have sexual value. See, and here's the thing. Here's the hypocrisy of the situation when you hear this. What is going on this side of the world? What's going on in the West? You have these drag queen story hours and shows where basically children, and you've had drag queens come forward and say, no, you should not be bringing children to these adult shows. These are adult shows. You should not be destroyed. These people say they think they're trying to get rid of racism, but what they're doing is they're actually, sexualizing the children. And this is wrong. This is totally wrong. You're using cartoons to portray to your situation, and there is no logic to it. And you have groups like PAPS and many others that have been trying to push away anime, manga, and pornography and trying to combine them all in one category to get rid of them. And you've seen what's happened in Australia and Russia and many other countries. Even in this country, we're seeing people trying to put up regulations against a lot of this product. Though the outlet of saying deferred to Kanari in an effort to bolster their own call for censorship, Vice News would reluctantly confirm that there were no studies currently available to correlate lolly manga to actual assault. Exactly. Stopping short of acknowledging that the various pieces of scientific research which provide strong evidence to the contrary. Instead, they choose to deflect by to draw a correlation between lolly manga and the apparent ongoing child abuse crisis, as reported at the country's national police agency, factoring the land of the rising sun. To this end, the acknowledgement, while Japan isn't the only democratic country where kids are sexualized, it is one of the slowest to reform their child sexual abuse laws. Unsurprisingly, Vice News did not provide any specific countries for comparison, nor did they distinguish whether children are being sexualized in real-world victims or fictional characters. Yeah, see, here's the situation here, and this brings up Netflix. And then, of course, they're not going to bring this up Netflix. If you remember Cuties, and that whole situation, that whole debacle on what they used 10-year-olds to gyrate and to do things that basically you should not be doing, putting a child in there. This was coming out of France. And then, of course, you have the animated series Big Mouth, which Big Mouth, Jesus, what it has begun. First season and first half of the second season was okay, and then they just really went to town on sexualizing children. I mean, you have, even though it's a joking thing, and like I said, this is a cartoon and stuff like that, but they don't discuss this specifically, and there have been others. There have been jokes on Family Guy, Futurama, and many other shows. Forget About It, another one where, had situations on there that had, it didn't go that far, but still, you had links to the situation where, you have a teenage daughter and, underage, that she's having unprotected sex with other guys all the time. As good as the story is, but the thing about it is that is just showing the hypocrisy. I mean, you're not seeing this happen, but you're led to believe that it is happening on there. But see, that comes to the point where that's what, you're seeing over in some of these mangas and stuff like that. And some of it, yeah, it is graphic enough. In further support of their accusation, Vice News attempted to capture footage of the lolly manga section of Akibar bookstore's Melon Books. Though their requests to film inside the store were denied multiple times due to the piece's potential to direct bad publicity toward the business, the team eventually succeeded in their goals thanks to their hidden camera. Now, here's the situation. And this happened several years ago with the BBC, and the BBC reporter was arrested. Vice News violated Japanese law. There is a law on the books, especially when it comes to filming inside of a business, that unless you have the proper approval of the owner of the business, you can't even do secret hidden camera work. They went in there, blurred everything. You couldn't even tell what it was, and the way it was produced, the way they were making it, this is a whole entire store full of lolly. And it isn't. It was just a section. But they were making it look like we've gone deep inside the basement of this place. A lot of their stores are on bottom floors. There are video game places which are in the basement. Do they have hentai games down there? Probably. Do they have regular games? Yeah, they do. But they make it sound like, we're going to the seedy place underneath in the sewers and, where the dirt is. However, the results of this stealth filming will be blurred in the final footage, as according to Montgomery, what's on the shelves is too sexually graphic on the whole aisle. Here is just sexual abuse, child pornography. It's like every other page we can't film because there's just so much on it, she proclaims. Nearly everything except for her body is blurred in the accompanying footage. Yeah, you don't even know what they were pointing to. They could have been pointing to a hentai section of the store, which had nothing to do with kids or anything of that nature. Or they could have done a regular anime wall or manga wall. You didn't know what they recorded. Next, in a truly underhanded journalistic move, Montgomery sought to bolster the connection between the lolly manga consumption and real-world abuse by speaking to Takayashi Kato, a convicted pedo who credits his assault of 11 children, some as young as 3 years, to his consumption of lolly mang. During the interview, Kato, who had confessed to abusing girls in public, teaching boys to self-gratify themselves, and even soliciting child prostitutes for sex abroad, asserted that while his sexual attraction to young children began in middle school years, his affinity for lolly manga during college years was what finally nudged him to embrace his suppressed pedophilia fantasy. I was in middle school, Cato recalls. I'd look at children and get very aroused. See, here's the thing when you get to this point with this part of the interview. This guy wasn't reading any lolly back then. He was already aroused. See, the thing is, and we just said this before, there's stuff that can trigger someone off. It could be anything. This guy was already triggered. And for them to interject it, well, yeah, he was reading lolly. Did that mean that he went forward on that? Not really. He already had that instinct. You know, it's the same thing like when you say serial killer, when serial killers are born, you know, very young, when they get that instinct in them, when they start to torture animals and do things that, you know, are within the privy that you know, psychologists and FBI profilers would tell you that, you know, this person needs help. This person needed help back when he was in middle school, and he did not get that. And the thing about it is, don't know if it was his parents or if he has, you know, family members, they didn't go forward with that to try to get him help. So basically, this, you know, he got into those situations. Don't blame what he read, really. And this is how they go. I started reading manga often, and more to my desires to sexually assault children increased, he adds. After seeing depictions, those images were seared into my brain. I think those images when I carried out those assaults. Yet, despite Vice News' deciduous attempt to present Cato's story as a cautionary tale for general population rather than the result of his disgusting individual choices. Again, yeah, straight out. The outlet entire argument was immediately undercutted by Otaku Ward Assembly member Minoru Ogino, who happens to work in the manga industry, sitting down with Montgomery to discuss. And if you've seen this part of the interview, they made him look like a yakuza. They filmed him in dark. Whoever edited it changed it down to darken the look to make it like he was a seedy guy. He's like, oh, I'm the guy who handles out all the candy. Sitting down with Montgomery to discuss her alleged correlation between lolly and manga and child abuse, as well outlet call for a genre to be banned, Oigo explained the comics aren't influencing people. First, these crimes are already occurring, whether or not the manga exists. There is no evidence that this material leads to criminal acts, he continues. When the state thinks about laws or regulations, they have to be a scientific basis. Unsatisfied with his refusal to bend her emotion arguments, Montgomery asked Oinino how many countries have introduced regulations for moral reasons. Why is Japan exception here? Standing firm, the Ottawa Assembly member explains, I think those rules are influenced by each country's culture, set of values, and customs. There are countries that have outlawed the depiction of same-sex couples, he notes. It's based on the will of the people. That's democracy. Further seeking onto Orion beliefs, the test Montgomery then hands down the politician an unidentified collection of volumes of lolly manga and asks him to explain the depiction in this comic book, which results in the following exchange. There's a little girl, and I guess this must be an old man. He's touching her underwear in a way. Is this really an old man? He's drawn like a monster. What are your thoughts about reading that? It is a comic book for adults that depicts a child. That's it. Do you think this type of work should be protected? Yes, I do. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. I think it should be. Sorry, no issues. Right. And you can go on reading the rest of this on Bounding into Comic. But understand, here's Vice News. They're trying to push a narrative that doesn't exist. Is there a child trafficking problem? Yes. Is there a child pornography problem? Yes. Does it correlate to anime and manga? No. Now, there's one scene that they were trying to push on here, and I got the clip on here, and it is a picture because they try to convince people that this was this anime manga, or that it was a lolicon, that it was pushing all this stuff, and they took photos. They took shots that basically, you had Netflix in the background in one scene. Now, there's one part where you see two girls touching the breast of a animated character, which is the main picture itself is a character in the anime series Vermilion Gold. The main character that they're putting their hands on is a demon that's several thousand years old. Yes, she's well endowed. And the character is in a high school. It's sort of like a Hogswart, a Harry Potter type of school. The teaching magic and all that. And the demon is the main character's familiar, that he was able to, and he's hiding that she is a demon. And the thing about it is that one of the main premises is that their power between them is that they do have to copulate a little bit, but it's not really shown. It's implicated in the series, and there are some nude shots and all that. This is not like a Redo the Healer type. There are some things. Most of it is when it happens, it switches to an exterior shot, and that's it. It's done. Is there an uncensored version? I haven't seen one yet. Most of the scenes on there, I've seen it on the high seas. I haven't seen it like that, and I haven't read the manga on that. So the manga is a little bit more explicit, but not as explicit on there. But they tried to push that situation that this is a child, and it is not a child. And they tried to push everything around the situation to that. They tried to find every way to try to push down these, but there are elements in the West that are similar in nature to some of the anime and some of the lolly. Like I say, Cuties and Big Mouth are big examples of that. And we could probably look into many other TV animated series and find that as well. There has been sex in animation for quite some time. They don't talk about heavy metal. They don't talk about heavy traffic, Fritz the Cat. God, we can go down the line on a lot of animated films on there that has sex in it. Now, when it comes to children in these things, you have a situation. Naked Bart Simpson on The Simpsons. We've had that. I don't think anybody complains about that. There's a couple of other series that we could say, there are children in there. But see, the thing is that they're focused on this because they want the anime and manga gone. But meanwhile, on this, Project Veritas just put out a report that taxpayers are paying for child trafficking in the U.S. Now, you can catch their video on there that it gives a detailed explanation of a whistleblower who has come forward and saying all the children that they're basically coming across that border, they're getting sent, kept here, being sent to sponsors here. They're not the sponsors they should be sending to. Now, take the moment and watch the video, whether you believe it or not. The evidence is shown, and in the case of what I believe, there should be some investigation of it to find out if this is true. And, is there that type of situation coming here? It's always been here. I lived in Florida for 10 years, and I saw some of that in Florida where children were being used as prostitutes on a daily basis. And the thing about it is, this was in Miami, in the tourist areas. And I know the cops in Miami, and I give it to the cops in Miami-Dade, they have a hard job there. And they try their best to catch every one of them. But the thing about it is, when they get rid of a handful, you know, you get another handful in there as fast as it happened. So tell me in the comments below your thoughts on this hit piece. There's a lot more we can discuss on this, and probably we may discuss it on Manga Cafe in the new year. So comment below, subscribe, like, share. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in. And here's the other thing that before we go, Vice has another hit piece coming out next year on the porn industry. Oh, we're looking forward to that. Bye-bye now.